Music and the machines. We now know that tens of thousands of fully synthetic tracks arrive every single day to streaming services, slipping quietly into playlists or recommendations built for passive listening. Listeners can't tell the difference, platforms don't seem in a hurry to help, and artists across continents, genres, and generations have spent a lot of 2025 waving red flags about erosion, consent, and compensation. Many music fans have little idea, others are simply left shaking their heads in bafflement. A very human industry is increasingly shaped by non human volume. The Calabar track This Drift 2025 looks like the year music's next frontier became simply music's next flood. Coming up this week, Music and the Machines, when AI isn't just background noise anymore, curated cuts, Iceland's AI landscapes, and Tarantino's revenge via Fortnite. Warner, Netflix, Paramount, yes, the deal, the drama, the HBO-shaped question mark. AI on the dot, notes from a neomorphic creative salon, plus some quickies, ESPN in Asia and Squid Game America. Music, machines, misfires. Back in January, I wrote that music streaming service Deezer launched a new AI detection tool, revealing their new tech had already discovered that roughly 10,000 fully AI generated tracks were being delivered to its platform every day. That amounted to about 10% of the daily content delivered to Deezer. Some 10 months later, Deezer has said it now receives over 50,000 fully AI generated tracks daily, or 34% of all tracks delivered to the streamer. Let that sink in. Just in September, that number was 30,000. Note, Deezer remains the only platform to detect and explicitly tag 100% AI generated content. Now, this came in tow with the results of a survey Deezer commissioned across 8 countries with 9,000 participants done by Ipsos. Some key findings: 97% of the respondents failed to distinguish between AI and human generated tracks. 45% of music streaming users would like to filter out 100% AI generated music from their platform. Maybe more hearteningly, 80% agree that 100% AI generated music should be clearly labeled to listeners. And 73% of music streaming users would like to know if a music streaming service is recommending 100% AI generated music. Somehow, I am still having conversations whether Gen AI music is really a thing. Well, it became a thing and is well on its way to becoming many more things. It's been quite the year for generative AI and music. The conversation around AI and music stopped being abstract and started showing up in lawsuits, contracts, playlists, and yes, charts. Across explorations in the Calabar, few themes were persistent. Artists warning about erosion, tech companies insisting they're democratizing creativity, and platforms quietly hoping for not too many questions. The tone was set early in the year when I had to take a moment to absorb a stunning view from Suno AI's CEO, Mikey Schulman. It's not really enjoyable to make music now, he said, before comparing his company's ambitions to video games. As musicians across the world gagged, he said, the majority of people don't enjoy the majority of the time they spend making music. In his ideal world, music should be something you play, the way you half play Fortnite while your friend chats in your ear. This from a company with, quote, a deep love and respect for music. His message: music making is tedious drudgery. Let the machines handle it. In February, over 1,000 artists in the UK asked, what happens to a creative economy when you legalize unlicensed training? Their protest album, Is This What We Want, was an album of silence. Empty stages, unplayed instruments, a clever, devastating metaphor for what UK copyright proposal risked hollowing out, shared by the likes of Annie Lennox, Hans Zimmer, Kate Bush, Riz Ahmed, and others. The matter remains unresolved, with voices across many creative fields continuing to push for what they believe is an issue of not just copyright, but the health of creative communities at large. A different, welcome critique came from outside the Western bubble, where African voices showed how the same divide exists about the place of AI. Concerns span predictable, Western skewed biases baked into most large models, and the appropriation of music that could leave it shorn of the identity on the continent. Synthetic success. One of the stranger episodes of the year was the mysteriously popular folk rock act that materialized on Spotify, hoovered up playlist placements, and cruised to over 1 million monthly listeners in no time. The Velvet Sundown had folk rock aesthetics, rapid growth, and a profile that didn't quite add up. Of course, it was then called, quote, a synthetic music project with a description that was cloaked in artistic statements about pushing the edges. And there were many more twists in the story, too. A quote from The Atlantic: what may now be the most successful AI group on Spotify is merely profoundly and disturbingly innocuous. In that sense, it signifies the fate of music that is streamed online and then imbibed while one drives, cooks, cleans, works, exercises, or does any other prosaic act. End quote. Close on its heels, over in India, there was Trilok, a quote, AI generated Indian band that wants to pair spiritual tradition with contemporary rock. Or, if you prefer, India's sonic past reassembled for a future audience. Trilok later released a music video that looks like a Me Too version of Glass Beams, but incredibly featured real humans playing the physical versions of unreal digital personas that make up the band. Ooh. In creating music of the kind that actually already exists in a region overflowing with talent, the question always is, who needs this? Why is this being done? The answer, I'm afraid, seems just wrapped in one symbol. But the synthetic success continued. Zania Monet, an AI-generated R&B artist, signed a $3 million deal. Zania is actually an output coming from the words of Talisha Jones, a Mississippi poet, who uses Suno to channel lyrics into a coherent persona. We also got Breaking Rust, an AI-generated country cowboy artist whose song Walk My Walk rippled to a slightly obscure Billboard chart, as did Zania. As Van Batum in The Guardian said, entertainment has ever been the art of reference and illusion, which is why artists' concerns swirl around AI's capacity not to replace their creativity, but as a potential channel for their exploitation. My own instinctive recoil still stands. Music is emotional resonance. A song carries, in whatever measure or shape, someone's lived experience, or pain, or joy, or the weird in between, or something sometimes much more trivial but real. A song generated via an optimization loop feels opportunistic, hollow, and utterly unnecessary in my life. But if the tunes are kinda your thing, are you okay with them playing in your ears and in your living room? Or does the provenance really matter? Wherever you might stand, these are undeniably all shadows of a new ecosystem where being a human artist is no longer the default. Platforms and guardrails. The thing is, a lot of music is consumed passively on streaming platforms, with playlists and suggestions leading the way. That's where a lot of AI generated music finds it easy to slot in arm with the realities of perfect fit playlists and ghost artist supply pipelines, which I wrote about and I have linked to here. Spotify's response to all this chaos was underwhelming. Their newly announced measures to deal with AI generated content largely shift responsibility onto artists and providers to self label their work. There was the Universal Music and Udio saga, a lawsuit that morphed into a partnership with a very 2025 outcome, a walled garden AI music platform. Udio can now access UMG's catalog only with artist opt in, yes, but users can only listen to their re something creations within the platform. No downloads, no exporting. Cue outrage from users whose worldview has been shaped by years of the internet owes me free derivative content, thank you very much. Meanwhile, Warner Music has also found a settlement with Suno. The other big labels are still very much in litigation with Suno, with the need for artists to opt in. What that means for existing training of artist music, I can't quite tell. Suno, for its part, represents the wider content and engagement play that much of tech and entertainment have become. This from their investor deck, quote, Suno creates an entire Spotify catalog's worth of music every 2 weeks. Volume as virtue. As Jeffrey Anthony said, AI produces content at volumes and speeds no human can match. And crucially, it produces content that people will accept as real enough to give their attention to. That's the breakthrough. Not that AI makes better music, but that it makes acceptable music at an unlimited scale. End quote. Which brings us neatly back to Deezer's numbers: 10,000 AI generated tracks a day in January, 50,000 by October. A third of daily uploads. We don't know those numbers for Spotify or Apple Music, but they're unlikely to be vastly different. And most listeners can't tell the difference. They're not supposed to. Platforms continue to be quite happy with quantity over clarity, and many listeners will hum along obliviously. 80% of listeners want AI clearly labeled, note clearly labeled, and 73% want to know when algorithms are pushing it at them. I do hope this is representative of a wider desire for conscious listening, but it shows the real tension that 2025 seems to have forced into the open. We have splashed past the can machines make songs, and we are now swimming in the deep about who benefits, who gets erased, who gets compensated, and who gets inundated. But maybe the questions are much simpler. As many fans say, who asked for this? Or why do we need this? All right, on to some curated cuts. Iceland's AI landscapes. Wait, what? Iceland is AI generated? If it looks too good to be real, then it probably isn't real. In a time where the doubt and mistrust about pretty much anything we see online is getting fully into third gear, Iceland Air concurred with the social media quip that the country is so beautiful it might actually be entirely AI generated. It's a fun and entertaining spot. Tarantino's revenge. Tarantino's Kill Bill appetites were never really sated. Here is a trailer for the lost chapter Yuki's Revenge, an animated short that is part of the limited run release of Kill Bill, the whole bloody affair. The short is also out on YouTube already, starring Uma Thurman. It saw Tarantino work with Epic Games' Unreal Engine and the Third Floor to release the film in Fortnite. Netflix, Warner Brothers, Paramount. There is way more written about the Warner Netflix Paramount drama than any of us can reasonably read, and I'm not going to add to the noise. But the saga of how Netflix pulled it off was laid out probably best in an insider account from Lucas Shaw, which I linked to. It might well have a few more chapters added on by the time Ellison and their hostile takeover attempt is done. The chat around which option is better for whom, fans, consumers, creatives, industry, employees, is a maze of its own. If this, then that. One thing I repeatedly wonder: what chance does the brilliant brand of HBO and its quality have to come through relatively unscathed? If you worry about the potential fallout for movies, there's an old piece I've linked to which lays right into Netflix and what it's done to movies. Though there is ample evidence that any merger here is a net negative for the wider creative community and sector. I dropped by AI on the Dot last week, a cultural salon hosted by the same duo that has run the very popular AI on the Lot event in Los Angeles for the past couple of years. This was a small, curated attempt to splice Hollywood's creative AI mindset into the APAC conversation. I like that it was largely shorn of the breathlessness around AI that often marks such gatherings, though the optimistic energy around it remained palpable. The word of the evening was neuomorphic. It's Mike Joya, aka Intelligent Jello's antonym of sorts, to skeuomorphic, referring to how we can look at video creation coming from an AI powered world. It's been used well by Doug Shapiro in his essay to try and move beyond looking at Gen AI as merely a new way to make movies and TV. Themes orbited familiar territory: speed, scale, possibility, but the conversations mostly had a grounded quality. Speed and its impact on storytelling, both the craft and numbers, was a recurrent theme, as was chat around smaller teams, sharper focus, and traditional instincts. Fascinatingly, also about deeper integrations into workflows and pipelines. Think along the lines of not so much AI replaces production, but more AI reveals who can actually tell a story when the tools stop being the bottleneck. Some nodding of heads about how we are or we need to move from look, the model can generate amazing video to something like can it generate something that feels like intent? Notably, but I suppose unsurprisingly absent, any real discussion on ethics or model provenance. The only practical concern raised was indemnity. Please tell me my outputs will not legally explode in my face. With ambitions to make this a larger recurring event in the APAC calendar, I can see how AI on the dot could grow into something meaningful. And hopefully, we'll stay curious, lightly ambitious, not so much selling the future as poking and prodding at it. Plus, some quick hits and links. Disney Plus and ESPN do have sports ambitions in Asia again. Let's see where that goes. There are updates on the Squid Game America adaptation, confirmed to be helmed by David Fincher, with Kate Blanchett on board, starting filming early 2026. And as MTV fades away, a piece on the relevance of music videos. My other Substack newsletter, Coffee and Conversations, has already waded into the end of year mood. Munch on a beloved snack and stroll through worthy reads scattered across the months, the masala peanuts of CNC fame. If you enjoy reading the color bar, maybe get me a coffee and help fuel the next one. Link in the newsletter. Or do support by sharing the pieces you like and forwarding to others who might enjoy it. I'll be back with some looks at 2025 before taking a bit of a break heading into the new year. Hope you too are cruising through to the holiday season.